e-learning program. I'd like to establish a few protocols as we're going into the e-learning program today. The president of the Association of Professional Women Engineers, past presidents of the Association of Women Engineers, founding members of the Association of Professional Women Engineers, chapter chairman, fellows, ESCOs, and every other members. If we have press, gentlemen of the press available here, you're welcome to this session of Upward e-learning on August 1st, 2020. I would like to introduce our speaker by reading a citation. I'm sure we're all excited to have someone whose wealth of knowledge in this industry is a top-notch one. Our presenter, our facilitator for today's program is Engineer Dr. Chukwuma Chidozie Katchy. He is a World Bank trained and certified procurement expert and an alumnus of the prestigious Lagos Business School. He is the first and the only Nigerian PPP expert certified by both the Institute of Public-Private Partnership, Washington, and APMG. He is a seasoned professional and author. Dr. Katchy is a current chartered engineer, a project management professional, and a former vice president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers. He authored the book, Public-Private Partnership. Dr. Katchy retired as a commissioner of police in 2016. As a career police officer, he headed the procurement department of the Nigerian Police Force from 2006 to 2009. He also received the Inspector General of Police Letter of Commendation. He holds a PhD in civil engineering. This is after a bachelor's and master's degree in the same field. In addition, he holds MBA in strategic management and a diploma in law. He is a member of Institute of Directors, a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Management, and currently he is the chairman, Nigerian Institute of Management, North Central Zone, and a council member of NIM. I hereby present Engineer Dr. Chukwuma Chidozie Katchy. Thank you.
Good morning, all. Good morning, Upward President and all present. I hope my voice is clear. Am I being heard?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. But I think there are some devices around you that you may need to turn off.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Oh, cheers. How did they share? I'm trying to share the screen.
You can do that.
Okay.
Yes, there's a green button just at the middle of your screen, share screen. When you click on it, you can select the slide or the screen you want to share.
It's at the bottom of your screen.
Private partnership, which is an alternative way of financing infrastructure development. But unfortunately, The knowledge is not that far and deep, so it is still a misunderstood concept in Nigeria. This is a snippet from the former Speaker, House of Representatives, Honorable Dogara, when they visited Ajokuta about 2 years or 3 years ago. This was his comment. If we complete this plant, that is Ajokuta, Nigeria will be better for it. We are here for Nigeria, so no more concessions of our access to strippers. You can't concession your future. We will not repeat that mistake of concession. Anyone who attempts to outsource will run into problem with us. Clearly, the concept of PPP, concession is a form of PPP, we'll come to that later, was not clearly understood by him. That is why he was seeing, and himself and other members of the House, they were seeing those who are proponents of PPP as enemies of the society. Today, we shall discuss various aspects of PPP to enable us to have a better understanding of what it is all about. We will discuss what is a PPP, forms of PPP, important topics in PPP, some of them, of course, we can't cover everything in 1 hour program, and challenges of PPP. There are 2 methods of procurement: conventional procurement and public-private partnership. Conventional procurement is the one we are used to, government awarding contracts and paying from budgets. The PPP is the new one in the world now, started in the late 80s in a present structure form. It has always existed, actually. The Suez Canal, as we know it, was a PPP project 1854 and opened 1869. The PPP was not embraced by the world till late 88. So, in a conventional procurement, you have the government, just like in PPP, you also have the government. In this conventional procurement, that is to the left, the one painted blue, the government goes straight to a contractor, engages a contractor. Then the contractor executes the project. But in a PPP, what's the difference between PPP and a conventional procurement? In a PPP, the same government engages an investor who engages a contractor who now executes the project. So the only difference between the conventional procurement, which we are used to, and PPP is the investor coming in between the government and contractor. So the investor will still need a contractor. We'll come to that later because the investor will come in form of a SPV, special purpose vehicle. So the difference between the 2 methods of procurement is the presence of an investor. It's not as if PPP is done something from the air or something from outer space. It's still the same execution of projects, same processes and everything, except that this time there's an investor between the government and contractor. Now, something important I want to say here is this. Conventional procurement, government engages a contractor. That is a contract. In a PPP, government engages an investor. That is an investment. So one fundamental difference, which many of us have not understood, is that a PPP is an investment, not a contract. Yes, technically it's a contract because it has the 5 elements of a contract: offer, acceptance, consideration, intention to go into legal agreement, and capacity to contract. But it's an investment, not a contract. What am I saying? Let us take it that Lagos Ibadan Expressway is to be expanded and repaired, 300 billion naira. If it's by conventional procurement, the public officials will see that contract has been awarded for 300 billion per contractor. That is in order. But if it is by PPP, the public officials should not see that contract has been awarded to an investor. No. You should see it that somebody is coming to invest his 300 billion, which he may or may not make profit at the end. This concept, this thinking is very, very important, because public officials still think that PPP is a contract, and that is why PPP, a lot have not been as successful as they should, at least at the lower level. Now let us go from conceptualization of a project towards project decision. Projects are not ends to themselves. A project is meant to solve a problem. What we have here, the first is needs assessment. That is, you itemize your problems. It's called need because the statement is need for intervention. That is why you are seeing need here, not problem. Otherwise, the other word that should have been there is problem. It is called need because of the statement need for intervention. So when you have identified the problems, you think of the solutions. Let us take Lagos Ibadan Expressway. It's congested, it's bad. What is the solution to it? One solution may be to construct another road, maybe through a place that comes out somewhere at Ijebu. That is one solution. Another solution may be to construct a road through Ota, to come out somewhere at Shagamu. That is another solution. A third solution to this problem is to expand the road from 4 lanes to 8 lanes. Let us assume these are the 3 solutions. Using different methodologies, a solution will be chosen as the optimal solution, as the best solution. Let us assume this, what is normally used is cost-benefit analysis. There are other methods used also, cost effectiveness and so on, but the most common is cost-benefit analysis. Let us now assume that using cost-benefit analysis, we have chosen solution 3, which is to expand Lagos Ibadan Express Road to 8 lanes. This decision is called investment decision. Now, after the investment decision, the next thing is how best do we procure this expansion? What is the best way of buying this expansion? This is where these 2 methods of procurement come in. Either we go by one method, procure the solution through traditional procurement, that is government awards contract as they have done now, directly to contractor. Since 2009 to now, 11 years, the project is still going. Or we try the second method of procurement, that is through PPP, which if government had done that, 2-3 years it would have been completed and we'll be using it. PPP project does not drag for long. We'll come to that later. Now let us assume for the purpose of this workshop that PPP solution has been chosen. Note that traditional procurement could also have been chosen here because not all projects can go through PPP. We'll come to that later. Let us assume for the purpose of this workshop that the procurement solution chosen is PPP solution. This is called procurement decision. Then after this procurement decision, which is based on pre-feasibility study, not full feasibility studies, a full feasibility study is now undertaken. And at the end, it may be decided that yes, let us go ahead with this PPP, or we shouldn't go ahead with PPP. This is called decision to procure. So let me go through them all over again, because along the line, we shall take a small test of just 8 questions to test our knowledge. They are not difficult questions. You just get your pen and paper around. They are just objectives. So we shall discuss important outputs as we have just discussed. I said the first one is an investment decision. That is, what is the best solution to the problem? PPP is not a solution to a problem. PPP is a procurement solution, a procurement method. Every problem has its solution. If, for instance, infants are dying in large number in one remote village somewhere, the solution is not PPP. The solution is either to do the clinic for them or fumigate the place to kill mosquitoes or whatever. The solution is not PPP. If the children are dying of cholera and so on, the solution may be to sink boreholes. That is investment decision. It's based on cost-benefit analysis. That is the first decision that has to be taken. The second decision, as I said, is procurement decision. Sorry, that investment decision is contained in what is called business plan. Second decision is procurement decision. That is based on pre-feasibility study. Do we go by PPP or do we go by traditional procurement? It is contained in what is normally called a screening report. That is the second decision, procurement decision. Then you now have decision to procure. This is contained in outline business case, where you do full feasibility study, where you decide whether to procure or not to procure. We take that again. The first decision is business plan. What is the best solution? The second decision is procurement decision. That is, do we go through PPP or do we go through traditional procurement? That is, what is the best way to buy this project? Third decision is decision to procure, and is contained in outline business case. After that, you now go through your normal procurement process, advertisement and all whatnot. Then you get what we call preferred bidder, not the winner of the contract, as we call him in traditional procurement, because you still go into a lot of negotiations with him. If it doesn't work, you move to the next person, to the next bidder. It doesn't work with that one, you move to the next one. So these are the complexities of PPP. Then when you have agreed with the preferred bidder, you now have what is called full business case. I'll mention the difference between outline business case and full business case later. After that, you sign a contract with the preferred bidder. That's if you have agreed. This is called commercial close. What you have there, the product there is contract agreement. Well, it's not called investment agreement because, as I said, PPP is still a contract technically, but remember it's an investment. If you have it in mind that it's an investment, it means you must cooperate with the investor. Don't see him as a contractor. See him as somebody who has come to invest, who may win a profit or a lose. Then the final is the financial close. This is where you do handing and taking over of site. In traditional procurement, once you sign contract agreement, you hand over site. But in PPP, when you sign agreement, you don't hand over site. But you will still allow the investor access to site. You only allow the investor move into site and take possession with financial close, because you may not have financial close, in which case you move into another person, usually after about 180 days. That is 6 months. That was the problem our Society of Engineers had in engineering close in Lagos. Immediately contract agreement was signed, site was handed over to the investor. And they started searching for money. In the process, NSC removed their materials and everything from that land. The land became open. Victoria Line, very attractive. It attracted the eyes of the principal of King's College. He now claimed the land belonged to King's College. He went and arranged with federal government, their body that went out of federal government assets. They came and put their signboard there. We have been in court with them since 2005 or so. We're talking about 15 years now. If this process had been followed, until that man had money, he wouldn't have handed over the site to him. There would have been no question of King's College coming to claim a land we have been using for years. So all this will lead to successful PPP. So now what is a PPP? There is no universally accepted definition of PPP. It varies from place to place. But let us pick up the definition of IP3, Institute of Public-Private Partnership, based in Washington. They define PPP as a form of legally enforceable contract between the public sector and the private sector, which requires new investments by the private contractor, money, or technology, or expertise and time, or reputation, etc., which transfers key risks to the private sector, design, construction, operation, etc., in which payments are made in exchange for performance for the purpose of delivering a service traditionally provided by the public sector. Notice that the definition says that this requires new investments of money or technology. It didn't say and. What that means that not all PPP involves private finance. Yes, many of them involve private finance. In fact, that's the one that attracts us most. But not all PPP involves private finance. Sometimes the private person comes only with his expertise or time or even reputation. So not all PPPs involve private finance. Then let us look at key aspects of this definition. It also transfers key risks. What do we mean by risk? This is business, and business is all about money. So the risk we are talking about here is who suffers financial loss. So we should get that clear. When we talk of PPP, risk, we are saying who suffers financial loss. So transferring key risk to the private sector means that if certain things happen, they will suffer the financial loss. For instance, if you transfer demand risk to the private sector, it means that if the demand falls below expected demand as contained in the financial model, the private person suffers the loss, not the government. Another thing we notice in this definition is payments is for performance. That is to say, payment is not for assets in a PPP. What do we mean by that? In traditional procurement, the contractor builds that legacy by the express road. As his building is paid for putting up the assets. He completes the road, he is paid, he goes his way. It's not there to maintain or whatever. But if it is PPP, he doesn't get 1 naira for completing the road. He only gets 1 naira when people start using the roads, that is services. So PPP pays for services only. It doesn't pay for assets. At times it's very difficult to understand because you can't get services without assets. What we are saying that if through PPP, investor completes that legacy by the express road, 8 lanes, shining and everything, and cars don't use it for one reason or the other, he doesn't get 1 naira. Unless government promised him, "I'll not do the, we shall pay you once even then, he must maintain it. He will not be paid for the assets, he will only be paid for services. So the payment for the services will cover the cost he has spent in providing the assets. Then this is very important. In the definition, it said service traditionally provided by the public sector is very, very important. Because sometimes people will say, what's wrong with this investor? Let him go and do his own asset. Why does he want government owned? Like when they built, when Lekki Road was expanded through PPP, one of the grudges of the people who were demonstrating was, this is an existing road. Let them go and build their own road. This is antithesis of PPP. The purpose of PPP is for private man to come and do what the government should do. So don't tell him to go and do his own. Like if they want to hand over government hospital to a private man, people will kick. Why can't they go and build their own hospital? No. They can't go and build their own hospital because the very basis of the PPP is for what government is doing. These things are very important to understand. So what are the advantages of PPP? There are many. The first is that it provides an alternate source of finance. For instance, Nigerian roads are very bad, no money. Only PPP can solve this problem. There's no magic about it. If you get a private person, he spends his money, recovers it from people using the road. People are ready to pay. Because you travel once with your car, it gets damaged. Last time I went from here to Lagos, that was about 5 years ago, not even now, the roads are horrible, more horrible. Passed through Ota, through Abeokuta and came back. I lost my gearbox. Spent over 300,000 to put it back. It would have been better for me if I paid 2,000. The maximum I could have paid would have been, let's even be 20,000 to go and come. And that major loss. And I know some people who have suffered such loss also. So PPP provides an alternative source of finance to government. That is, it taps into private funds and frees public funds for use in other areas. Like money that could have been used, that we are using to pay for this Lagos Ibadan Express Road now, which can completely and entirely go under PPP. The money should have been used for some rural areas or some areas that cannot go under PPP. Then extra investment, it enables government to embark on many projects at the same time. Let us take it, for instance, government wants to build hospitals. Each hospital costs 100 million, and government wants to build 10 of it. And government can only afford 100 million a year. That means every year they will build one hospital, 100 million. To complete building the 10 hospitals, it will be for the next 10 years. With other PPP, the private person can build those 10 hospitals in 1 year and start recovering his money over a period of time. So it enables government to have extra investment at the same time. Timely completion of projects. As I said, until a project is completed and renders services under PPP, the company doesn't get 1 naira back. What that means, it is in the interest of the company to complete the project on schedule, to enable that company earn money. The investor, enable the investor earn money. And of course, it has to be completed within budget, because since there won't be time overrun, there won't be budget overrun. And in any case, if he's doing it outside budget, he suffers the loss. So there's an incentive for him to make sure he does it within the budget. It's not a question of asking for variation, because it's not a traditional procurement. Sustainability. Since the investor is to recover his money over a period of time, 10, 20, 30 years, he must make sure those assets are in good conditions for those years. Lagos Ibadan Express Road, we know how good it was when it was constructed. Later it became bad. Other roads, the same thing. But if it were by a private investor, the road must be good throughout. Because if the road is bad, people may not use it. Besides, government will start finding the investor. So he will ensure that it is sustainable. What are the advantages? The first is that it takes too long to structure. If you're in a hurry, you can't start a PPP. If, for instance, let's take something like this our national stadium that was built, I think was it All Africa Games or whatever, within 1 year or so. And I think, no, I'm talking about National Stadium of Abuja. It was quickly done within 1 or 2 years. PPP, if it were to be through PPP, for 2 or 3 years, you are still structuring it. So it takes time to structure. Why? Because time is spent to do detailed drawings. Because PPP starts with preliminary drawing. It's after the investor has gotten the contract that he goes into detailed drawings. When Babalakin was doing a Lagos Ibadan Expressway through PPP, he said that it took the government 2 years to approve his drawings. All this is added to time of the contract. Again, why it takes too long to structure is that lenders will redo the feasibility study. You know, I told you, you have to do feasibility study full and have an OBC before you can advertise and go ahead and secure your preferred bidder. When the preferred bidder comes, it comes with lenders. We'll explain that later. There's always lending in PPP. The lenders will redo the feasibility study. So they will not depend entirely on the government feasibility study. In any case, the government feasibility study will usually say for information purposes only. So they have to redo the free study. In any case, their money that is at risk. So they can't afford to depend on what government has done. 3, educating public officials about what PPP is. Many public officials don't understand what PPP is. As I said, they still think it's a contract. So anybody who wants to have successful PPP anywhere must bring out time to educate the government officials of that agency all over again for them to understand what PPP is. I believe that is why Babalakin is having problem in that MMA. Because when I have listened to some of the public fan officials talk, you can see they don't really understand what was going on there. They see that Babalakin came to play a fast one on the government. Now, PPP involves higher transaction costs. Why? Because there are a lot of other experts involved. You have the transaction advisor, that is an expert in PPP, a consultant in PPP. You have to employ him. You have to employ an independent engineer. Who is this independent engineer? He comes from the private sector. He's the one who signs the certificate as the job is going on so that the bank can release the money. The bank will never depend on government engineer to sign certificates. You know, if it's what we call it, if it's traditional procurement, it's the government engineer that signs the certificate or consultant employed by government. No, in PPP, the private sector, usually the bank, the lender, through the investor, will bring the independent engineer. It is his certificate they depend on. They have an independent expert. All these things are, all these people are employed, all these people are employed involve money. The independent expert is a technical, a financial expert who is by the side. Anytime there's a conflict, dispute between the government and the private sector, an investor, during the construction operations of the PPP, the independent expert is called upon to give his decision. Whatever decision he takes becomes binding. You know, if it's in traditional procurement, the government engineer may say this block shouldn't be this way, this block should be this way, argument will be going to and fro. In PPP, once such a situation arises, the independent expert comes to give his decision becomes binding. The independent expert is only employed to give decision on technical matters or financial matters. It doesn't give decision on legal issues. If there's a legal argument, it has to go through the normal process. Because you know, by law, the courts are the final interpreter of law. So no individual is given that authority to go and give a final interpretation of law on a site. No. He only gives final interpretation or decision on technical issues or financial issues. Then you have the Construction Engineering Inspection Engineer, CEIE. This is the government engineer who is inspecting or supervising the project, whatever language you want to use for it, or monitoring, that's the correct word, because he cannot give binding instructions to the investor. He only monitors and says, do this, don't do this, but it's not binding. It's the instruction of the independent engineer that is binding, not the CEIE. So all these things make PPP more expensive, transaction costs. PPP involves higher capital costs. Private sector borrows money at higher rate than government. Government will borrow at 3%, 5%, but private man, 10%, 15%, 20%. Plus his profit also. So the capital cost is higher in a PPP. Then another disadvantage of PPP is controversy. They are usually controversial in immature markets. Argument upon arguments. We saw when Lekki came up, there was demonstration. In fact, today, people are not paying on some parts of Lekki Road. The State Assembly make sure they now is government that pays for it. So PPPs are always involved, always controversial in immature markets like Nigeria. Now, can all projects be procured through PPP, despite of the good advantages and aspects of PPP? The answer is no. Before a project can be procured through PPP, 5 conditions must exist. The first one is that sources, levels of revenue must be clear, predictable, profitable, and capable of strong growth. PPP does not go to where a loss is caused by poor economic fundamentals. Remember, I said that PPP is a procurement option. It doesn't perform magic. If a project is poor in socio-economic factors, PPP cannot perform magic there. If Sunny like Sheraton Hotel Lagos is decided to go and build this somewhere now, one remote area, it will definitely run at a loss. PPP will not make it run at a profit. Now, I remember when these airports that will be concessions, 4 of them, 2016, the minister called me to address the workers at that Sheraton Hotel. I think November, that should be November 12, 2016. I remember it was about 2 days after my retirement from the police. What they were saying is, why should these people come and pick the 4 profitable airports in the country? Lagos, Port Harcourt, Kano, and where again, I think Enugu also. Why can't they pick the loss-making ones like Akure and all whatnot? No, that is contrary to the principles of PPP. PPP goes to where the revenue is profitable. It doesn't go to where there is loss. Unless the loss is caused by inefficiency, lack of money, and things like that. But if the loss is caused by fundamental economic factors, PPP does not go there. Remember, it's an investment. An investor does not go to where you will lose. Then output has to be clearly defined. You can't do PPP for something that, remember, PPP is about services. So a service that cannot be clearly defined, you can't do PPP there. Lagos Ibadan Express Road, you can define the output, 4 lanes, this and that and so on. There should be no pothole. If there's a blockage, it should be cleared in 1 hour. These are clearly defined. You can do PPP there. But you cannot say, let's do PPP with Nigerian Police Force because it's the output of Nigerian Police Force is slow and on. How do you measure it? So PPP can only be used where the output is clearly defined. Tariff must be affordable. You can't build PPP, you can't do a PPP project and people cannot afford to pay for it. Let's say Lagos Ibadan Express Road now. If it works out that a car will pay 10,000, you know it's not possible outright. In that case, you cannot do PPP there. Risks must be within private parties' risk tolerance threshold. Just like every individual has limit of risk it takes, investors also have the limit of risk they take. When you give certain PPP to them, they take a look at it. If the risks are too high for them, they say no, they won't be involved in that. We'll discuss that about de-risking a project. That is reducing the risk in a project to make it attractive for investors. Remember, I said it's not a contract, you know, the traditional procurement, once you advertise any contract, people will tender. Whether it's profitable or not, when they go there, they start asking for variations. In fact, there are now people we call claims experts. The slightest thing that happens on site, when they make claim for it, the government will bow. That is their work. But in PPP, there's no room for that. So once the risk is too high, the investor goes away. And I remember what one British expert in PPP said. He was in South Africa for over 25 years practicing PPP. He said that as we are doing PPP in Nigeria, every public official should have it in mind that whatever we are trying to do, there are at least 120 other countries trying to do the same thing. In other words, investors are not bound to come to you. They have 120 other places they can go to. That is why you have to de-risk your project so that the risk can come within the investor's tolerance threshold. Finally, a distorted competitive market does not and will not exist soon. You can't ask somebody to build a Lagos Ibadan Express Road, 300 billion, to recover his money in 30 years. 5 years after, you put a light rail, Lagos Ibadan, 10 minutes, and the demand for the road will crash. No. Why writing the agreements? Because the experts will be there, all these things will be there. The government will not build such things, railway and all whatnot. But if they are going to do, government will guarantee minimum demand for them. So if the Lagos Ibadan Express Road was calculated that cars will be passing there 10,000 a day, 10,000 a month, and they want to build, it will be in the agreement that anytime government does anything that will reduce the traffic, government will make up the traffic back to that 10,000 a month. So if government builds a rail, fast rail, TGV, as they call it in France, Train de la Grande Vitesse, that somebody can move from Lagos to Ibadan in 15 minutes. Then the number of users now fall from 10,000 a month to say 5,000 a month. Government will have to pay what the remaining 5,000 would have paid to make up to that 10,000 a month. These are all called de-risking a project. We'll discuss that later. So we come to forms of PPPs. There are different forms of PPPs. The smallest is the service contract. That is outsourcing a part of a company's operating activities. Like water board can get a private man, a private firm to be collecting their bill instead of them collecting. Or the new railway we have created, they can get a private firm to handle sales of tickets and not government to be selling it. That is a service contract. The next one is management contracts. The management of a government firm will just be removed and private manager brought in to manage the firm for 3 to 5 years to put it in to reposition the organization. Then the next one, you have lease, affirmage, franchise. Lease is that an asset is handed over to the private person to run. The private finance it will bring there is only for operations and maintenance. It spends money only on OPEX, operating expenditure. It doesn't spend money on capital expenditure. Then it pays what is called lease fee to the government. Affirmage is the same thing as lease, except that in this time, government pays money to the private investor. It's not common in English countries. It's common in a French country. That's why you have it affirmage. It's a French language. Then franchise. If an asset is leased to a private person, a private firm, and it's using a new name, it goes by, you just call it lease. But if it's using the name of the government, then it's a franchise. Like this railway, if we hand it over to an investor, if he's still using it, if he's still calling Nigerian Railway Corporation, it's a franchise. But if he gives it a new name, Royal Railways, then it becomes a lease. Then joint ventures. This is not a typical PPP. It's your government and private coming together to do business. No transfer of risk or whatever. Then you have concession, also called BOT. Concession is just like a lease, but in this case, the investor also spends money on capital projects. So as for instance, a hospital is handed over to an investor, and all it does is to pay staff, paint, change leaking roof and all whatnot, it's a lease. But if it's to add extra ward, buy heavy equipment, 500 million and so on, it becomes a concession. Then you have asset monetization. Government completes an asset with its money. Like Lagos Ibadan Express Road that is being done through the traditional procurement now. Government completes it, hands it over to a private sector to recover the money spent on building the asset. That is called asset monetization. The licensing BOO. build, operate, build, own, operate. There are no transfer back. All these GSM and co on, they are all PPP, but they are licensing. They are not the typical PPP, because typical PPP must have duration when the asset should be returned to government. But in this case, there was no asset to be returned to government. It's all the same is a PPP because it's not a traditional procurement. Because every procurement is either traditional or PPP. So these are also added to PPP, but it's not a standard PPP as we know. Then we shall now discuss some important topics. The first is that there are several government agencies involved in PPP. The second is that about consumer protection. We'll discuss about payment mechanism. We discuss viability gap funding, output-based aid. We discuss SPV, special purpose vehicle. I've been talking about investor. Investor forms an SPV to sign the contract for a PPP. SPV, special purpose vehicle. We talk about financial viability of a project. What do we mean by that? We discuss lenders, bankability, stepping rights, payment on termination. We discuss de-risking a project, which I mentioned earlier, and credit enhancements. We shall discuss technical requirements, financial model, preliminary contract structure. These are all topics we are discussing. It's not as if they are linked to one another that way, so that it doesn't get confusing. Just to discuss different aspects of PPP. Now, in a PPP, different government agencies are involved. ICRC, Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission. Their duty is to ensure that a PPP project is well prepared, structured, managed, done in accordance with the ICRC Act. You have the Minister of Finance. The PPP project, we normally go to them. If there are liabilities, government may incur, direct or contingent, we'll discuss that later. The PPP projects, ICRC will take a look at the OBC when you submit it and make sure it's in order. Minister of Finance will also do the same thing to confirm the financial model is in order. It will still go to BPP, Bureau for Public Procurement. Remember that PPP is a form of procurement. The Procurement Act covers all procurements, whether it's traditional or PPP. The role of BPP is to check that what we call the process was competitive, transparent, fair, and all whatnot. The correcting was done. So all these government agencies are involved in that same single BPP contract. If it's traditional procurement, only BPP is involved. Once budget is sent to an agency, money is released to them, they execute their contract, only BPP comes there. But if it's PPP, BPP will still be there. ICRC will be the greatest body there. Minister of Finance will still be there. If there will be, if it imposes on loan that Nigeria will be involved, of course, their management office and so on will be there. Many agencies are involved in PPP. Of course, the agency itself will be there. So we discuss consumer protection. Many times people don't want to hear the private sector. They say, no, private man, if he comes here, this will be too costly. Nobody can afford it, this and that. No, it's not so. There are ways of protecting the consumer. One is competition. If you advertise a PPP and different investors contest, of course, the price cannot be out of the world. Because of that competition, the price must be within affordable level. By contracts, remember that the investor has to go into contract with the government. Inside that contract agreement, it has to be clearly stated that he cannot increase price without approval by the government. Of course, there's a contract monitoring process inside that contract to monitor the quality of the services. So all this protects consumer. Then by regulation actually used is a monitoring or control from an external body, usually done in privatization. So it is not true that once you invite a private sector, that the poor man is finished. No. The prices will go into heavens. No. That the private sector will sit down, anything he likes, he rise down. No, it's not so. The consumer is protected through any or a combination of these three methods. Then payment mechanisms. How does the investor get his money back? There are two ways. User pays. That is, those who are using the products, they pay. So using the services, they pay. Like Lagos Ibadan Express Road, any car that enters pays, that is user pays. You also have government pays, also called unitary payments. Government may decide, as they are decided in part of Lekki, user don't pay. Just drive your car, go. Leave the rest for us. We shall pay. And Lagos State government is paying in part of that Lekki. Then the government pays itself is divided into three. There are three forms itself, three sub-forms. The first one is usage payments. It's just like user pay, but it's not the user that pays, it's the government that pays. Like that Lekki is usage payments. When a vehicle comes, it clocks. Every month, every 2 months, I don't know the detail. Based on the number of vehicles that use that place, the government will pay. That is usage payment. Another one is availability payments. Government can say, just make it available, we'll pay it. We'll pay for it. Whether it is used or not, we'll pay for it. It's usually used in places where the objective of the government is not to maximize the use of that service per se. Like ambulance. The intention of government is not that people should be using ambulance. So ambulance will be based on availability payment, not on user pay. Prisons. Like in America, government doesn't build prisons. The private investors that build prisons, they go by availability payments. So if government decide that investors should build prisons for them, you can't go by usage payments. Government is not praying that people should go inside prison. It will be based on availability. Once the prisons are okay, government pays. That is what they use in South Africa. In fact, I remember years back when South African investor came to discuss building prison in Nigeria as investment. I remember the editorial of one of the papers, let me not mention the name, but one of the biggest papers in the country. He said, upon all the investment in Nigeria, it is prisons that this will start to come and build for us. Whether they thought that after they have built the prison, the people will be jailed every day to recover their money. No, it's by viability payment. Even if a single person is not in that prison, the investor will still be paid. Then performance, based on some KPIs, not KPIs, KPI, key performance indicator, the investor is paid. Let's say something like information on COVID now. Government may say, okay, we have discovered that only about 20% of people in social area believe in COVID, that it exists. If you can make 40% of the people believe, we shall pay you social amounts. So the private person goes to work with a lot of things, advocacy, shows, and all whatnot. It pushes up the number of people who believe that COVID-19 exists up to 40%. He gets paid. That is performance payment. VGF and OBA. VGF is viability gap funding. Government may discover that if an investor invests all the money in capital projects, what he's going to charge will not be affordable. Government may say, okay, we shall give you part of the money to invest so that it can be affordable. Let's say that if they are going to spend 300 billion on Lagos Ibadan Express Road, they will need to charge 5,000 per car. And government says, no, that is too much for my people. How much will you spend? And you will charge only 1,000 per car. say, if we spend only 150 billion, we can charge 1,000 per car. The government will say, okay, no problem. We will give you 150 billion, spend only 150 billion, so that you charge only 1,000 per car. That is called viability gap funding. Another one is the output-based aid. That is, government can say, okay, you spend your 300 billion. Each car you're supposed to collect 5,000. Just collect 1,000. We shall give you 4,000 on top. That is output-based aid. So if, for instance, you hear that government wants to concession Unilag or Uniben to private universities like Ibinedion or Covenant, there will be riot everywhere because they will say, that means that students will be paying 700,000, which is what they pay in Covenant University. No, it's not so. Assuming what they are paying in Unilag now is 100,000 accounting students, and they want to hand it over to Covenant University to charge 700,000 per student. Covenant will collect only 100,000 from students, and government will give the remaining 600,000 to make it up to 700,000. That is what is called output-based aid. So it is not true that once a private person comes, poor man is finished. No. If the government does what it's supposed to do, either through viability gap funding or output-based aid, poor man is not finished. Then we talk of sponsors. Sponsors are actually the owners of the SPV. There are two sets of them there. You have the sweat equity sponsor and the financial equity sponsor. Sweat equity is the person who runs up and down to get this PPP contract. When he gets it, he now gets people who will invest money, equity, and also get lenders to invest. So one of the problems we're having with all this is that when the sweat equity person is running up and down in government agencies and ministries and so on, they'll be saying this person we are seeing who has an old car is talking about a job of 10 billion. He cannot do it. He doesn't have the capacity. No, that is sweat equity you are seeing. Once the sweat equity gets through, the financial equity person will come, the lenders will come. Lenders, actually the most important people in a PPP because they bring the bulk of the money. Therefore, whoever is structuring a PPP must ensure that it is acceptable to lenders. In traditional procurement, you stay in your office, get a contract, design it, throw it out into the society, people bid. In PPP, you don't do that. You must invite lenders. You must invite some of these investors to what we call industry meeting. So tell them this is what you want to do, this is how I want to do it. They will tell you, no, you bid this way, this is what you want, this is what you don't want. It doesn't mean you must do what they want, but you must know what they want. Because it will not help the government that you have spent money, advertised, do feasibility studies, throw something into the market, and nobody bids. Or no reputable company bids. It's not in the interest of the government. Or you employ a preferred bidder, but is not able to get a financial close, which is what happened to NSC building in Lagos. The investor couldn't get to financial close. Why? Because the lenders were not brought in from the word go. It's not when you get the contract. It's not when the investor gets the contract. And he needs the lenders for the first time, who will now say, no, we don't want this clause, we don't want this clause, introduce this clause. So lenders' interests are of paramount importance in a PPP. You don't discuss PPP without discussing lenders' interests. Very, very important. Unless it's a small PPP that somebody can put on the savings and do it, 700 million PPP, 1 billion PPP. But if you are talking of something like Lagos Express Road, 300 billion, another road, 200 billion, you must invite the lender. So we have terms of bankability, payment on early termination, step-in rights. Bankability is to structure a project in a way that is acceptable to lenders in a project finance method. Project finance is a method of lending. There are different methods of lending. We all used to collateral. If you want to borrow money, you keep your money down. But project finance, you don't keep collateral down. If somebody is to borrow 250 billion for Lagos Ibadan Expressway, what collateral will he keep? That borrowing, that method of borrowing is called project finance. That is, the lender depends completely and entirely on the revenues that will come through that project. Therefore, you must find out what they want. Take a look at it. And these are some of the things they want. Payment on early termination. You know, when we, in our traditional procurement, in our contract agreement, we talk of early termination, that when we determine a contract, we go to site, we measure this, do this and that. You don't mention about where the contractor borrowed this money. But in a PPP, because the money is coming from a lender, you must mention it. Early termination. This will happen to lender. This will not happen to lender. Lender must know what will happen to his money. Then the another one that must be in the contract agreement is stepping rights. Lenders will always insist that you have a stepping right for them. What do you mean by that? That before you determine the contract and send away the contractor, you will call in the lender to try his best to know what he can do about the contract. He can continue with that same investor, or he can bring another investor. But a lender cannot keep money down, say Lagos Ibadan Expressway, somebody keeps a group of banks keep 50 billion down, only to tune on radio and hear that the investor there has gone. No, they must insist on stepping right. You must call them and discuss with them. And they will step in. It's when they're unable to remedy the defects, the defaults, that we cannot talk of termination. And these things have to be clearly contained there. We talk of financial viability of a project. Financial viability means different things to different people. To the government and public, financial viability means affordability and quality service. That is the interest of government and public. Is it affordable? So if you do Lagos Ibadan Express Road, say 5,000 acre, it's not affordable. So to the government, the public, is not financially viable. To the investor, viability depends on the IRR, internal rate of return. They may want an internal rate of return of 25%. So if at the end of the financial model, the yield is not up to that 25%, it's not viable to them. The lenders, their own financial viability is anchored on what is called DSCR, debt service coverage ratio. It's a settled calculation. It's a calculation. You don't need to go into it. So each of these people check all these things, the one that concern them. But in reality, each of them checks that others own are also in order. For instance, if it's affordable to government and the IRR is not okay for investor, then the project is not financially viable. Same thing with the lender. If his DSCR is okay, but the IRR is not okay for the equity investor, the project is not viable. So each of them still looks at the entire factors the other people look at to determine financial viability. So financial viability is not a question of profit and loss. Oh, it's profitable, it's not profitable. No. These are the areas they look at. Then the risking and credit enhancements, where they are used interchangeably, though they are not exactly the same thing, but we shall use them interchangeably. There's no problem about that one. We talked about de-risking a project, making it risk acceptable to lenders. For instance, one way of de-risking a project is arbitration outside the contract of execution. If the money is coming from outside the country, we are talking of EMD countries now, emerging market and developing economies like Nigeria, the lenders will insure the money. And the insurers will always insist that arbitration should take place outside the country of execution. Remember, there's no collateral for their money. That the collateral is the project itself, that once the project goes, their money goes. If you take a project to a bank and you bring collateral, say you want to borrow 50 million, and you give them your house of 150 million, They won't bother about the risk. They will just give you the money. In fact, I heard that they will pray for it to fail so that they can sell the collateral. But this one, they are no collateral. Therefore, they must make sure that the risk is acceptable to them. So if money is coming from outside, they will always insist on habitation outside the country. And this is where problem arises. Because our colleagues in the Ministry of Justice, we said no, that doing habitation outside Nigeria, you are diluting our sovereignty. Many times it will work, it will not work. But that is a way of the risk. The lenders will not accept most times from outside that habitation will take place in Nigeria. Why? Because those who are going to insure their money will insist it will not take place in Nigeria. You have partial risk guarantees. I think the issue came up the other day over this house IPP in Bende. Partial risk guarantee is just a guarantee against MAGA. MAGA is called, that is MAGA, is Material Adverse Government Action. What partial risk guarantee is saying is this: a multilateral or whatever institution outside will guarantee partially of the money the investor will spend, not all. They will never guarantee fully so that the investor does not embark on reckless behavior. It's only partial, so that the investor will lose money if he embarks on unnecessary risky behavior. They will guarantee that if this project is adversely affected or is destroyed because of political reasons, not because of economic reasons, because of political reasons, we shall pay you so part of the money you have invested. That is the partial risk guarantee you are hearing of. And how does it work? They will get the government, like a Nigerian government, to accept, to sign the partial risk guarantee. That if such a thing happens, this multilateral pay this investor, then automatically it becomes a debt by Nigeria to that multilateral. So partial risk guarantee is not a bad thing. If we are sure we are not going to do anything politically wrong, there is nothing bad in it, because it covers only the political risk. It doesn't cover economic risk. Contingent or contractual guarantees. I talked of demand risk. If risk is about reducing, risk management is about reducing uncertainty in a project. If the uncertainty is high, they may demand that contingent liability that, look, if demand falls so, you have to pay us so. That is contingent upon something happening. At times there are contractual guarantees. We talked of, what do you call it, stepping rights and all those things. Those are guarantees you give direct to the investor. Yes, if this year you step in and all whatnot, the termination of payment, these are direct guarantees. So these are always on de-risking a project. Okay, direct guarantees to lenders, I mentioned it. You guarantee them that if we terminate this project, we shall pay you back your money. They can't lose their money just like that. Because in the first place, they are not the one who chose the investor. It's government that chose the investor. They only came in and brought in their money. So why should they lose their money if the investor misbehaves? But they will not get all their money back. We call it a haircut. Why would they not get their money back? Lenders are meant to supervise the investor when it's working. That is one of the benefits of borrowing money. So that even if a project is going to cost 100 billion and government has that 100 billion, it's advisable that government doesn't put down their 100 billion. Government, you can put 20, 30 billion, lender bring their money. With that, government will benefit from what is called lenders oversight. So if the investment fails, lenders will suffer some loss because it means they were lousy in their oversight. Then a PPP project is defined substantially by these three features. Technical requirements, that is the technical solution to the problem. Financial model, which is a spreadsheet that contains all the revenues, costs, taxes, everything, free cash flow for the company and the equity investor. Preliminary contract structure, that is the contract to be signed. Vital elements should be there, like financial structure, restructure, and all whatnot. Every PPP project must have these three. Understand that MMA2 in Lagos had no financial model. Well, that was before knowledge of PPP actually came to Nigeria. We're talking about 2003. The knowledge was not there by then. That's what I told the workers when they brought it up, when I was talking to them in that November 2016. I said the knowledge was not there, so there must be errors. You can't dwell on error. And because of that problem they're having in MMA2, I'm assuming that is why no other airport has been concessions from then till now. 2007 to now, how many is 13 years? No other airport has been concession. Because just like a man is judged by his past behavior, governments and agencies are also judged by their past behaviors. Any investor who sees what is going on in MMA, reputable investor, will be reluctant to get himself involved in concession in Nigeria. Perhaps only the rent-seeking investors will come, which will not be in our interest. So it is in the interest of Nigeria, Nigerians, that all problems of PPP are settled and solved once and for all. That MMA should be settled and solved finally. It shouldn't hang again. Anywhere you have problem here and there, all these things should be solved. Yes, I agree that when the whole thing started, the knowledge was not there, so a lot of things were not there. Every PPP project must have technical requirements, financial model, and contract listing. But you find that many times, especially in unsolicited proposal, somebody will come with technical requirements. I want to build, government, you're not going to put 1 naira. Instead, I will pay you 1 or 2 million every month. Everybody will be excited. Yay, carry on. Along the line, they discover that it doesn't work out that way. Problem will arise. So anybody who comes for PPP in your place, to show you these three things, the technical requirements, which is solution to the problem, financial model, because the financial model that will be used for variation and so on, then the preliminary contract structure. So you notice that in a PPP, 4 sets of people are involved. The subject matter experts who will handle the technical requirement. If you're talking of road, it has to be the highway engineers and so on. You're talking of bridge engineers and so on. Financial model, that is the accountant with knowledge of finance, or financial expert with knowledge of accounting. It has to be there. Then the lawyer, this is a lawyer issue. Some of us must have heard about Nigerian and ID, where they awarded arbitration costs against Nigeria on 9.6 billion or so dollars. Nigeria has been trying their best to escape from it. It is a PPP, and I believe that is why they had that problem. Government officials didn't understand what it was all about, and so they were treating it as if a normal project. And funny enough, in all this arbitration going on, Nigeria has been going there with lawyers only. No subject matter experts to guide them. It's the lawyers that are saying that P and ID, they don't have the competence to do the work. Not a technical, not a subject matter expert, not a chemical engineer, not a pipeline engineer, no. It's the lawyers that are saying they don't have the capacity to do that. The same lawyers are saying they don't have money, not financial guru is saying that. So this is where the government is getting it wrong. Government needs to add financial model experts, subject matter experts, and PPP experts to their team. It's not a lawyer matter that lawyer alone will handle. No, the lawyer will only handle one out of these 3 aspects. So are we ready for questions? Let's do a small test to ourselves. You do and mark yourself. Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, question number 1. Which describes a special purpose vehicle? Choose one.
Okay, someone raised their hand. Engineer Shagun, can you call? I saw someone wants to respond.
No,
Okay.
just okay. Okay, I thought at the end I thought people. Okay, let somebody respond. We can discuss. Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
sir.
respond. Let somebody respond.
Okay, Engineer Camille, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Hello, thanks for the opportunity. Actually, I thought it was a question and answer session.
Oh, okay. We
Yeah.
thought
No,
you
we
wanted
still
to
do
answer.
that one. No,
Okay,
we have
so
not
let's
come to the end
Engineer
of the
Katchy.
lecture.
Okay.
Okay,
We
Sorry.
have not come to the end. No. We are just answering questions now. We are not. We still discuss challenges of PPP before we close. Then we start question and answer session.
Okay, sorry, Engineer Katchy, how do you want this done? You want us to answer and then after you will mark
And
ourselves?
let's talk, which is an essential feature of a private finance PPP contract. Sorry, person raising your hand later. Let's just answer the questions. We now go to the answers. This is the first one. If you have an answer,
So if you have any objection or you need clarification, you can just use the raise hand feature, then we'll give you the opportunity to hear your perspective. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Camille.
Yeah, hi, I guess I'm being heard.
Yes,
I'm
go ahead.
hearing you.
Okay, thank you. Let me thank the presenter for a fantastic job, well done. I actually need clarification on that procurement aspect of the questions, because you said only only two is true. That's what I saw in the answer, meaning that the feasibility is not. That means feasibility may not be ready before procurement. Is that what you're saying?
No, which question are you talking about? Please read out the question.
I think the question is question number 3, the one that talks about procurement and feasibility.
Yeah, read it out. Read it out, please.
I don't have the question. I don't have the question. I read it from the screen.
That is why I wanted us to be discussing as we are there. I will get there now.
Yes.
Okay, what do you think should be the answer?
So, in my opinion, I actually need clarification because.
No, which one did you answer? Which one did you answer?
Yeah, I said both. I said both,
Okay.
one and two.
Can anybody answer him? Okay, the first one is a decision by the authority to proceed with procurement of a project at the end of full feasibility studies. I said that is decision to procure. It's not a procurement decision. When you do preliminary feasibility study, pre-feasibility study, you take a decision whether to go through PPP or traditional procurement, which is the best way of buying the project, which is the procurement decision. If the procurement decision says yes, you can do PPP, you now do a full feasibility study. Then you now take a decision to procure. After the full feasibility study, you can decide you can't go forward. You can still say no, it's not possible for PPP. You understand what I'm saying? Did you not come at the beginning?
Yeah, my understanding of full feasibility is that it could also be part of procurement, because you can also procure full feasibility, in my opinion.
We are talking about procurement of a project, not activities that lead to the procurement of the project. We are talking about procurement. Feasibility study is a project by itself. That's not what we are talking about. We are talking about if you want to build Lagos by the express road now. Feasibility studies will not be a project of itself. It's the road that is the project. A project is a unique endeavor undertaking to create a temporary endeavor undertaking to create a unique project. So feasibility study is a project, I agree. But we are talking of project now. We have decided a physical project like Lagos by the express road.
All right, thank
we are
you.
not at the beginning. Eh?
Thank
I'm
you.
saying that you do pre-feasibility study. Pre-feasibility study is based on available information. You don't go too deep. With that, you decide whether the project can go through PPP or not. That is called procurement decision. When you have now decided you can go through PPP, you will now do a full feasibility study. That will cost money. That you will now employ transaction advisor and all whatnot. At the end, the decision will still be taken whether to procure or not to procure. That is called decision to procure. That is why only two is correct. The first one is a decision to procure. The second one is procurement decision. Do we go by PPP or do we go by traditional procurement? Okay, no problem. We can continue later and privately. Any more?
Yes, sir. Question 7.
Okay. What does he say?
It's about the finance and can you just scroll there, sir?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Which one did you give as your answer?
I said both. I said both 1 and 2 are true.
Maybe you were not here at the beginning when I defined the PPP according to IP3.
I
It
was
says
there. Just maybe I
investment.
wasn't listening well.
Okay. We said investment that can be a form of money or time or reputation or money or not and. So not all PPPs involve private finance. I said it that time. It may just be reputation. You are not coming with money. Just come with your reputation.
I get it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. But because most PPP involve private finance, it looks as if all involve. No. Like management contract doesn't usually involve private finance. Like when they did NITED, that they brought Pentascope for what? Management contract. They didn't come with their money. Unfortunately, the money they made there, they deleted it.
Hello?
Yes, I'm hearing.
I have a question related to the first question about an SPB. You have a company that submitted an unsolicited proposal, and
Yes.
the proposal has been accepted and participated in all the procurement processes. And then
Yes.
after signing of the agreement, can that company transfer the concession to another SPB, a new SPB? Is it feasible? Is it allowed?
No, it's not right. No, it's not right. No, he's to form his own SPV. You know, when somebody is tendering, he must give you the names of those who will participate in the project. He's not allowed to replace them, except he's bringing the same people of the same caliber. You cannot submit that you are going to do projects with Julius Berger. When he will give it to you, you can bring Akwanga and Sons Steel Limited. No. You can replace Julius Berger with CEC, Bullet, all those ones.
Yes, yeah. What if the company they are transferring is of equal strength, is judged to be of equal strength, could be like the one that has gotten the concession? Under that circumstance, is it allowed?
No, you treat everything on its merit. Suppose the person who wants to go into bankruptcy, you can't force him to continue. But you can end the contract. You see, when an investor wins a PPP project, he doesn't do it with his name that he has been using. He has to form a new name. If, for instance, Lagos Ibadan Expressway is assuming it's given to Julius Berger under PPP, Julius Berger is a contractor, not an investor. But assuming Julius Berger wants to do it as a PPP, they will not answer Julius Berger Nigeria Limited or whatever. They can answer Julius Berger Ibadan, Julius Berger Abiyokuta. They must create a new company, register with CAC, so that you can reinvest the money coming in there. So it is the members of the SPV, the consortium, that can change. But they cannot as a whole transfer to another person. In fact, in every contract is written that there are no assignments without authority. But you have to treat it on its merit. Generally, it's not allowed. But assuming he wants to go bankrupt, you can't stop him. But generally, it's not allowed. You terminate the contract and give to the next person. That's why they are called preferred bidder, not winner.
Yeah.
2 or 3 people are there: preferred bidder, reserve bidder, and all one. If number 1 doesn't work, you go to number 2.
Okay.
All right. Any more?
Yes, we have Engineer Okeke.
Okay. Thank you very much. First of all, can I...
Engineer, you may need to speak up a little.
Huh? Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Engineer Katchy, for well-presented session. I actually don't have any objection to some of the questions and answers, but I think I'm suggesting that we create a poll to deliberate more on all these items, it will be a great thing added to what you have already done. I say kudos. Thank you very much. Greetings from NS Yaba branch.
Thank you, Apwen. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. We have Engineer Chinelo. Engineer Chinelo, you can unmute. Yeah,
hello, hello, good afternoon, fellow engineers, and thank you, Speaker, for your great slides. Please, my question on number 7 is, the answer is all PPPs involve transfer of significant risk to the private sector. Does it mean that the government involved in the partnership will get less risk and the private sector will have more of the risk? Is that what it means?
Generally, yes. Generally, the government should have less risk because private sector is better at managing risk than government. Government, if one bulb is in a house is off, before they replace it, you go through the requisition, you go to store, they sign, they go up and down. The private man can just put on his pocket, give his driver, go and buy bulb and replace this, that kind of thing. The private sector operates in a more fluid situation than government official because laws in government are made not for productivity any but to check fraud. The government is an octopus. The private person makes his laws for effectiveness and efficiency. So generally, the private person is better in managing risk than government. So as much as possible, I'm not saying you should transfer all risk to private person, it doesn't make sense. But as much as possible, as many risks as possible are normally transferred to the private sector. It's the ones the private sector cannot handle that the government will keep. Like if we are talking of Lagos Ibadan Express Road, to acquire land, you can't ask the private man to acquire land. It has to be the government that will take that risk.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank God.
We have Engineer Omon. Please, if you are there, you can unmute your mic and speak. I'm not sure she's there. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much.
Two participants raised hand. Are they still there?
No, you've spoken to Engineer Okeke earlier.
Okay. I not brought down her hand. Okay. She bring down their hands now.
Yeah, but I think Engineer Omon, maybe she's not there.
Okay, no problem. So I can go to challenges.
Okay, sir.
Okay, we'll continue with the lecture. Thank you very much for the participation, the questions and answers. Now, what are the challenges? Procurement of infrastructure is intensely political. And PPPs are always politically controversial. I've said that before, that they're politically controversial. Infrastructure is political. You want to put up anything now, the house of chief sees your political zone. Anything you want to do now, sees your political zone. So these are challenges. And PPP, people don't want to pay money. So it's always involved in one controversy or the other. It's a challenge. Now, this is what India Railway Minister said when they wanted to concession their railways. He said that challenges are many. Mindset itself is a challenge. The mind of human beings is a challenge. He said the biggest challenge is the mindset. One is our internal mindset, and the second is the people who use the railway services. Because even among his government officials, some people were not happy, some people were backing the concession. So this is a challenge. Mindset of people. That is where advocacy and a lot of things, workshops and so on, to make people understand what PPP is all about. There are oppositions to PPPs because the public sees the immediate burden, but they don't see the deferred benefits. You ask the public to pay. They say, why? They don't know that if they are paying that small money, 100 naira, as they are paying in Lekki, that Lekki road will never have pothole. But if they don't pay, assuming government built the normal way, traditional procurement, 2-3 years. Like Enugu on Onitsha road. At a certain part, in fact, what somebody was saying that People who are 15 years now will not know that the road was dual carriage in a certain part, because a certain part, one side of the carriageway, people now dry their cassava and so on there. You wouldn't even know there was a road there before. But if people were asked to pay, I think that road was constructed in 1979 or so, 1980. If people were asked to be paying, they would not be happy. But they don't know that if they were paying, that road will still be as good. In fact, it will be better now, not even as good as it was before. So people see the immediate body, but they don't see the deferred benefit. So that's why they oppose people. Then there's change in stakeholder behavior. People who are not being paying for something like road, since they were born, their father never paid, their grandfather never paid, you ask them to pay. They will oppose. Shift in the existing political and economic power network. In a PPP, it's not the government officials that are important once the job is awarded. You don't see anybody going, like you were awarded Lagos by PPP. You will see people going to the Ministry of Works to go and look for contracts for that on that road. You will all be going to the private sector. So it reduces the powers of the public officials, so they are not happy and they oppose it. Then government employees wrongly believe that PPP means an end to traditional procurement. They think that once you start PPP, no more award of contracts. Whereas we have said it earlier that not all jobs, not all projects can be done through PPP. They don't realize that. They think that PPP is a displacing technique. No, PPP is a complementing technique. It comes to complement what you are doing. PPP doesn't stop you, government from doing what they have been doing. It only helps. Like if we are to do PPP on many of these roads, all these bad roads will disappear. There was a time Bini Road cut into somewhere in Iraq. I don't know where it has been repaired now. It's a long time I travel last. With PPP, you don't have such things. The road must be good because the person will earn his money on the road being good. So, especially the private sector, people believe that private sector is only there for money, profit. Once the private sector comes, the poor will die. I've explained why the poor will not die. If government does the OBA, output-based aid or viability gap funding, the poor will not die. Of course, you have a competition, you have a contract management and regulation. All these things are to put the investor in check. It is not true that if the investor takes over Lagos by Express Road now, today we charge 2,000 per small vehicle. Tomorrow he say pay 10,000. No, it's not so. There are controls. We have discussed those controls before. There are more decision makers and important participants. There is lack of understanding of that. They don't understand there are significant differences between PPP and traditional procurement. And therefore this leads to new skills, new processes, new departments or units, not full departments. Now, PPP will need new skills. People must go for workshops, training. There will be new processes. No investor will go to a place, at least the lenders will not do that. Go to a place where you write one single letter. It starts traversing the entire gamut of a ministry, from minister to PAMSEC to director to legal department, back to finance to accounting. If we start, nobody will send this one naira there. They want a lean structure. That if you drop something at a unit, that's why you should always have PPP units. You drop a letter at PPP unit, and then it moves to one director, moves to PAMSEC, it comes back. No, here and there. But of course, if there is need for you to go for legal advice and all whatnot, it will go. But a situation where they will be treating a letter from investors, if they are treating the normal ministry file, nobody will send this money there. So these are the challenges. Then at the beginning of any PPP, they don't usually have clear governance structure. It's always vague. They still just do it the same way they have been doing things. So the whole thing becomes clumsy and lousy, and the decisions are not taken fast enough. So in conclusion, a properly designed and monitored PPP yields positive results for government, end users, and the private partner. However, that is unfortunately, many PPPs have been poorly designed. That's if they're even designed at all. Some ministries will just push out projects into the market. No planning, no preparation. As the private man, just do anything you can. No, it's not supposed to be so. Many PPPs have been poorly designed or are monitored with the attendant consequence of failure. PPPs are also meant to be monitored. There's what is called contract management in PPP. It doesn't mean once you do PPP, once you hand over to private man, you go to bed. No, there must be a team, contract management team, CMT, with manual, with rules and regulations to monitor and guide and control the investor. You don't just allow him like a cow that broke from his rope. No, it has to be controlled. And this experience has in most cases eroded support for the concept of PPP. Yes, where PPP have failed, if you go there and talk about PPP, they say, which one? Is it not this one? You people, this also thing there? It becomes a bad name for PPP. Whereas the failure is not due to the concept of PPP as not due to PPP as a concept, but to the planning and implementation. Not like if you plan a traditional procurement badly, it will fail. That's why we have abandoned projects here and there. So every failed PPP creates a bad precedent for PPPs. I remember I said that just as a man is judged by his past behavior, PPP projects are also judged by their past behavior. So it creates a bad precedent. As the public perception of private delivery of these services will be poor and will lead to strong competition to PPPs. Once you have one bad PPP, if you try another one, they say no. Like, what do we call it? Today, the aviation workers are still protesting over concession of these 4 airports. We no go agree, we no go agree. They are still fighting over it because they feel something has been done badly before. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you very much, sir, Dr. Katchy. It's been a wonderful session, and I can tell you personally as an individual, I've learned a lot. In fact, my mind is wowed, and a lot of other participants here listening to you. We have 3 people raising their hands, and we'd like to give them a minute each. But before we go into that, there have been so much requests as regards if we can get your presentation slides.
Of course, I will send it.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. To go ahead, I would like to invite Engineer Shegun. Please, you can unmute your mic and speak. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
I'm hearing you.
Yeah, well done. I've really enjoyed the workshop or the lecture, whatever I want to call it, but I've really enjoyed it, and I believe everybody has learned something. One point I want to ask is one of the greatest risks in this contract business is force majeure. How do you handle it in the PPP system? Force majeure.
Yes, thank you very much. Force majeure must be mentioned in the contract agreement. Remember, I said the lenders, you must tell them what will happen to their money. It must be mentioned there that if there's a force majeure and there is need to stop the contract, the lenders must get their money full back. They will get their money full back. It must be mentioned there. The equity investors must get their money full back without profits. It must be mentioned there. Remember that PPP, the investor has come to help government to do what government ought to do. So they shouldn't suffer loss over force majeure. Don't have that at the back of it. It's not a contract I wanted to someone. An investor is coming, and he's not just coming, he's coming to help government to redeem his democracy promises. Therefore, if the lender has put down his money, the equity person has put down his money, like let's say Boko Haram started suddenly and everywhere scattered and so on, the lender must get his money full, the equity man must get his money full. There's no interest for them. No, what do we call it, admin charges, they will lose those ones. But the money they brought and kept down, they have to get it back. Of course, insurance also comes in. That's why they have to be insured.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we have Engineer Demola. Please unmute.
Hello.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Ademola Olorunfemi. It's a pleasure.
Welcome, my past presidents.
See, Katchy.
Welcome, my PP.
Katchy, I am not surprised. I am not surprised. Appoint chairman, I'm very sorry. Appoint president, my apologies, please. Appoint
Yes,
president, I'm very proud of you and your team.
thank you.
When I saw this, I kept up of it, and thank you, Patrick, for reminding us all the while. Thank you, Martinsa Branch. You are here in the, sorry, before I get finalized, Totem Martinsa Branch, I know they are in Israel number. I am not new. I've known CC, that's what I call him. Yeah, Dr. Chukuma Katchy. I've known him for, I'm so close to 30 years. We're quite close. So I'm not surprised. He's a born teacher, born instructor. When I returned to Lagos State Polytechnic, that's where I teach. After my 6 years leave of absence, commissioner, incidentally, as president, I had the opportunity to organize a conference, international conference on social development in Africa. It's either 2018. I hope Engineer Dr. Obux is there, Putin Chairman, Martinsa Branch. He and some others were the initiator of that conference. And the one in Lagos Poly was the fourth one. And I was privileged to attend. The second one as NSC president, were partners. Engineer Katchy came in as a normal presenter. And by the time he finished, he wasn't one of the invited presenters. He saw the flyer and called me and filled in his paper. He became an invited paper. Not only that, he also won the best prize in that. He's a very humble person. His book is a must read. He didn't say that he has a book on PPP, and I would wish that our president, the appointed president, is given an opportunity for that to be publicized. He might not want to do that. He must read. Congratulations, Engineer Katchy. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I'm able to have listened to all these basic things from him 3-4 times now. It's always very refreshing. But in my own assessment, I want to proudly say I got like 90-something% that examination. I got more than Camille. I got more than Camille. Camille is from Manchester. But I was listening to him. I scored more than Camille, my good brother. So congrats. It's been a huge webinar. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Engineer Michael Oyani, are you there, please? You can unmute and speak. Engineer Camille, if you are there, you can unmute and speak.
Hello, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay,
yes,
let's say Engineer Michael first.
Yes, I'm not Engineer Michael. Just this, I'm Mr. Michael Oyani. I'm a lawyer by training. I just wanted to commend the industry the speaker has put in the presentation of the slides. Suffice to say that there are some clarification. It is not factually correct that all PPP must go to Bureau of Public Procurement to ensure that the transaction is transparent in the procurement. There are 2 agencies involved in procurement methodology: BPP, traditional procurement, and ICRC in the realm of PPP. The only time a project goes to BPP is when there's government involvement to the tune of 35% in the threshold. ICRC ensures by its law that there is competition. That's when you do a procurement through solicited procurement. Even where it is unsolicited, we subject it to some form of Swiss challenge to ensure price discovery and also ensure transparency. On that score, I want to say that it is not all PPP transactions that must go to Bureau of Public Procurement. The only time it goes there is when you want to procure transaction advisor. You are involving government money. So that's one, the TA is a traditional procurement. So you take it there for clearance. Once that transaction advisor is procured, every other process is regulated by ICRC, just to put it on record. Then I also want to say that it is not because of, he said that because of MMA2, no concession has been done in airports in Sudan. I think it is far from the true position. Government normally sit down, analyze situation, take strategic decision, prepare the project and take it to the market, just like they are about bringing some airport to the PPP market. The presenter also mentioned that the PPP in the final analysis is a bit costly, especially the capital district. Just to say that in PPP, we do public sector comparator. Once you do that, then it enables you to know whether the project should be done through PPP or through traditional procurement. The public sector comparator will throw up the issue of affordability. You now stand to show what the government stand to gain in the final analysis if the project is procured through traditional procurement vis-a-vis PPP. So when you do the project sector comparator, you now discover that PPP is way, way cheaper. So there are quite some other issues which I jotted down, but for time, those are the three I just want to bring to fore. All in all, he's our partner in progress. The presentation is excellent, just to point out these three areas for purpose of record. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Director from ICRC. Definitely, I didn't say that all what we call PPP has to go to PPP. If you listen, when I was giving an example, I always talk on Lagos about Express Road, 300 billion, this and that is the PPP we are talking about. I'm not talking of 100, 200, or 1 billion PPP. I was talking at the highest level. That's why I talked of PPP being involved. Of course, if it's at a lower level, it doesn't have to go there. Then, when I was talking about MMA, I didn't say with authority that is why. I say I believe. Because MMA came from unsolicited proposal. And my personal observation or analysis that if it had gone smoothly, no problem, no complaints, there would have been more unsolicited proposals for other airports. That's what I'm saying. Now you want to do concession. I know I said it, the minister invited me in November 2016 to talk to the workers. This is now coming from government. My point is that if there were no problem, there would have been more unsolicited. And I said that I believe. I didn't say that I've not done any investigation or anything. It's just what we call punch in police investigations. Somebody tells you it was this person that did this. No evidence, nothing. Then you start acting on it. I said so. So there are no problem about that. I didn't say that everything has to go to. When we're talking of PPP, we actually have in mind the biggest one, 200 billion, 500 billion. That is what we are actually having in mind. We're not discussing service contract or management. No, that's not what we are talking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you also, Mr. Michael. Engineer Camille, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. And let me honestly and heartily congratulate the APWEM. I think each time your presentation and your speaker session is notified to us by the past president, Engineer Ademola Olorunfemi, and often by our publicity secretary, Engineer Patrick. We mobilize resources to ensure that we are, we are ably represented and we join accordingly. But to be honest with you, each time I'm always impressed. I've never been disappointed by the quality of the presentation, the speaker, and the organization. I think I must congratulate the APWEM for that. Having said that, I actually want to have certain clarifications and see what the speaker can, how the speaker can help the nation in this regard. I'm particular about PPP in a corrupt system. When I say PPP in a corrupt system, I'm looking at consumer protection, because you have highlighted theoretically how this is supposed to be done. But in reality, one of the things we have noted is that these people who are meant to manage and protect the consumers will end up collaborating and making the system, more expensive for the consumers. So in a way, because one of the things I've always been trying to do is to see how we can domesticate ideas and stuff like that to our own environment. So in this particular situation, what do you suggest? How do you think we can manage this model to ensure that it gives us results at the end of the day? Bear in mind, look at the experience in the electricity sector, the transmission, the generation, and even the distribution, where even investors are not really putting money down, and they were actually thinking of how to absorb more money from the system. So in a way, I'm a bit, confused, and I think we can have an ingenious way of, managing this articulation in a way. So that's one. I think the second thing, which I think has to do also with the corrupt system, is what we have in the banking sector, because we have had situation of Hamacon, putting some banks on the sales, and at the end of the day, you see that the sales process is, it goes through a particular cycle and goes to, I don't want to say a preferred bidder, but it goes to anointed bidder, in a way. So what do you have to say, and how do you think we can manage this system?
Thank you very much. I say PPP is a form of procurement. The other form is traditional procurement. With all this corruption you are listed, traditional procurement is still going on because procurement must go on. Therefore, let PPP join the traditional procurement, even in that corrupt environment. The PPP reduces corruption because somebody going to borrow money from bank, there's a limit to which you can give out as a corrupt practice. So one of the advantages of PPP, actually, I didn't mention it earlier, is that it reduces, if not eliminates, corruption. But as I said, corruption or no corruption, traditional procurement is going on. We have not stopped it, but there must be procurement. Therefore, let's PPP join that corrupt environment. Along the line, solution will come. Thank you.
Are you not, don't you think there are some other things we can put in this model that will in a way domesticate it to our environment? Because I remember that consumer protection, which you mentioned, which I think is peculiar. I remember there's been an issue on that sometimes ago, whereby people are actually meant to protect this consumer to ensure that prices are not hiked. eventually collaborated with the investors and ensure that the prices are hiked again. So I'm particular about this aspect of it. Are there things you think we can put in place? Are there other things you think we can put in the system to control or checkmate such an anomaly?
No, the solution is for the government is to search for people who are not corrupt and put them in positions. I don't believe every Nigerian is corrupt. There are still honest people here and there. But the government needs to search for them because these few honest people are covered by a lot of corrupt people. The government needs to search for them. We don't need to domesticate anything. In some other places, they have introduced new measures like people we call probity practitioners. If you want to do a BPP, you get some people that people believe they have probity. Femi Falana, Sowore, and so on. You form them into committee, not to interfere with what is going on, but to be watching and writing. They are called probity practitioners. Some places they introduce what they call standstill period. That if anybody protests over that procurement, for a period of say 2 to 3 months, nothing will happen until decision is taken. So that makes those people, the officials running the procurement process, to be more careful. There are a lot of things other countries have done we can do. It's not anything new, but we can't cover this in a 1 hour workshop. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, sir. We still have quite some people raise their hand, but because of time, we might be able to take just one person. And that will be the next person, which is Engineer Mustafa Zubairu. You can unmute yourself and speak, please. Thank you.
Sorry, correction, I'm not an engineer. My name is Mustafa Zubairu. I work with Nigerian Shippers Council. I'm the head of PPP unit. I just have one observation that I want to make. The observation is that bureaucracy or bureaucratic return to me is the most challenging, is the most profound challenge in the implementation and delivery of PPP project. And to me too, this is because of 2 reasons. One is the knowledge gap of the bureaucrats, and then secondly, the long-term practice of involving so many bureaucrats along the civil service organization. So I want to suggest to ICRC as the regulator of concessions and also the custodian of PPP knowledge to liaise with the office of the head of service or any other organization to devise or to develop a framework of sorts that will streamline the way the PPP processes are undertaken in the MDS. Honestly speaking, from my own experience, you'll find out that a single project you'll be going back and forth within the ministry, and this is quite frustrating. I think something should be done to ameliorate the problem. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. What you are talking about is what we call bureaucratic inertia. That is when a file gets to the table of a bureaucrat, a public servant. Because he doesn't have complete and full knowledge of it, he will not take decision. He pushes it to another person, he keeps on traveling all over the place. As you have already noted, the solution is knowledge gap. ICRC has been doing a lot on that, workshops and so on. But Nigeria is very large. And by the time ICRC has trained some people, they post them out, a new set of people coming. So there are different people organizing workshops here and here. Like I normally organize workshop, but COVID stopped me. But I think I'll still organize another one by October. I will send the flyers out. End of October, we'll have a workshop in Abuja, then early November in Lagos. So knowledge gap is the solution, actually.
Thank you, Doctor. I received a message on the group chat that only men are speaking, no lady. So I want to believe that maybe doctor or engineer. I'm sorry if I address you as an engineer.
Let Dr. Oladuni, there's one Dr. Oladuni online, let her speak.
So after her, Akwe President, you take over, ma?
Yes. Let Dr. Latuni speak and I'll talk.
All right, ma. You can unmute yourself, Doctor.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to appreciate Hapwen for this enlightening session, and I've actually been following some of your other e-learning session, and I can comment that they've actually been very, very value-adding for participants, most especially our own team. I represent women in energy, oil, and gas, and so this is a very good training, if I may put it that way, or exposition with regards to some of the upcoming projects, in the sector. And I'm sure most of us already know that most of the projects in the sector are really capital intensive. A small project could start from a $150 to a $200 million. But what we see, and a critical challenge, I would appreciate if the speaker or anybody, it's great that we have ICRC in-house. Currently, we have quite a number of a foreign investor that's also coming as PPP partners, most especially from the Asia Pacific. So you have the Chinese, you have the Indians, and then you sometimes have some people from United Arab Emirates. And the kind of offering they come with, they are so juicy. However, what I have not been able to see is the full packaging of such PPP with foreign organizations. So it's not just government now, it's with foreign organization. And I am not too convinced that the fine print and the packages are solid enough in such a way that we will not go into some sort of slavery in another 10, 15 years. So a typical example is if I want to go road construction is the Fort Mainland Bridge. By grapevine, I have information that they are planning to collaborate with a Chinese organization that would do that. And in my sector, we also have quite a number of such projects, in natural gas and stuff like that. So to the regulators and also to the presenter, I would like to ask what kind of checks and balances are we putting in place to ensure that it does not turn into something we cannot manage in another decade or in 2 decades from now? Because like I said, they come with, there's a particular transaction and the Chinese are saying we are ready to bring 100% EPC and HEF. So engineering, procurement, construction, and funding, and all they want is a sovereign guarantee. So what do we have in a plan? I know we have local content, quite elaborate in the oil and gas industry, but I'm not even sure if the local content really extend up to the construction industry such that we mitigate against future issues. That's my concern and my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. EPC is a traditional procurement, is not a PPP. Sovereign guarantee is not a PPP issue. There are 4 ways of borrowing. Sovereign guarantee, that is the government guarantees that if there's a loss, they will pay. That is not PPP because the government is retaining the risk. You have collateral, which are measured, which we all know. You can asset base, you can keep something and borrow money. You don't use that in PPP because, as I said, Lagos Ibadan Expressway 300 billion. What collateral will you keep? Then you have corporate guarantee. It's used for small PPP. That's the big organization will guarantee the small PPP. Then for the big PPP, it is project finance. The only guarantee out of there is something like partial risk guarantee against government wrong action, against government political action. So you talked about debt there. Government has nothing to do with debt in the PPP. The lenders bear the full risk. That is why they give conditions, which if you don't meet, they'll simply go away. And that is when you're structuring a PPP, you must call the lenders, sit down with them and ask them a question. I gave an example like if, for instance, they said arbitration will take place outside Nigeria, and you say no, it's going to dilute our sovereignty. That's the end of them. They will not come again. They tell you this, they tell you that, and so on. Because, as I said, there are no collateral. The collateral is the project itself. Once the project goes, the whole thing goes. Sovereign guarantee is not a PPP issue. It's another way of borrowing. It's not a P. There are 4 methods. Sovereign guarantee is one of them. PPP is another way. Or project finance is another way, sorry. Project finance is used in PPP, not sovereign guarantee.
Okay. So in the case of this current Chinese investment,
Chinese is not PPP, it's traditional procurement. It's not PPP, it's traditional procurement.
Okay.
EPC is traditional procurement. That is, the contractor will be paid for the assets. In PPP, you pay for service. If Chinese were doing PPP, when they freeze the railway, they will be running it to get their money, not for us, not to hand over to us. When they finish airport, they will be running it to get their money, not to finish and hand over to us. What they are doing is EPC, that traditional procurement, not PPP.
Is that like a kind of a concession? Can we call it a kind of concession?
Concession
like
is a form of PPP. Concession is a form of PPP. What they are doing is not concession. Concession is services. If you are paid for the asset, it's not a PPP. You understand? Okay, we carry on offline because it's already time. So
Thank you so much.
we carry on offline.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Katchy. It's been a real engaging 2-hour plus session, and you've done so much justice to this. I never imagined it to be so detailed. Somebody told me that this is a full course on public-private partnership. They said it's PPP 501, not even 101.
I saw it.
And we are really grateful for this. It really shows the stuff that you are made of. By the way, for those of us who don't know, Engineer Katchy has always been a brilliant man. For a school start, you know what they used to call grade 1 in those days. Grade 1 with aggregate 0.6. That is, you have A1 in 6 places. That's how they used to count WASC in those days. Engineer Katchy had made aggregate 0.6 for his school start. And
we call it distinction.
Okay, distinction. So
Thank you very much.
You know that this is not this is no mean feat at all. We really appreciate you, and I would just like to appreciate so many people who have joined us. Our past president, Engineer Ademola Olorunfemi, thank you so much for joining us and for always broadcasting our news so that people can also join. Engineer Eugene Jibrin, the Executive Secretary of the Federal Capital Development Authority, who was here earlier. I think he has left. Thank you so much. Our past presidents and founding members, Engineer Maya Adetiba, Engineer Fulayo Kadri. Thank you, Dr. Felicia Nena Gubata. Thank you for being online. Engineer Shegun Adedeji, Engineer Christy Adelowo, Engineer Yetunde Holloway. Thank you. That's the chair of Women in Engineering of the World Federation of Engineering Organizations. Mr. Kenneth Bishola of CET Magazine. And of course, my Vice President, Engineer Elizabeth Eterigo. Thank you for coming. Engineer Tokuba Janoku, the National NICE Vice Chairman. And of course, the President of the Women in Energy, Oil and Gas, Engineer Oladuni. Thank you for coming. Engineer Uju Okusogu. And our friends and supporters in the diaspora, the founder and chief executive of Barbos UK Limited, Engineer Ismail Balogun. Been in diaspora for so long, but it's just in Nigeria at heart. Thank you for coming. Engineer Patrick will be doing also. And Engineer Namdi Amobi, who joined in from Texas. We appreciate you all. We might not be able to mention everybody. And of course, Engineer Adeniran Kilomodemo, thank you for being with us. And for us to go on, I would like to present you with our honor code certificate, Engineer Dr. Chukwu Katchy, for an excellent presentation on public-private partnership and overview. This is actually more than an overview, so it's a full course. But this is a token of our appreciation for what you have done today. I want to say thank you very much, and God bless you greatly.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity you gave me. God bless you. God bless our plan.
Yes, sir. So, like I said, at the end of this, we'll get the slides. We'll send it to your email, everyone who's been here. And also, when we also do the video, when it's ready, we'll post it on our YouTube channel and also send you the link. Professor Mustafa Zubeiru, the Director, Center for Human Settlements and Urban Development of Footprint, I recognize you, sir. Thank you for coming. So, Engineer Shegun can close the meeting.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. It's been a wonderful time. I never need more than 2 hours. Doctor, you've been wonderful. I wish I can get some of the things that you have in there. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everyone. Do have a wonderful weekend, and let's continue to keep safe. Bye.